We, the people of the United States of America, are in trouble. Sojourners Along the Way is going to address something that affects a large percentage of our country, and it's our health. We are literally killing ourselves by the things that we eat and those things that we don't eat. This program is going to center on our health, and I hope you will take advantage of other programs that Sojourners Along the Way has done regarding health, because there have been a number of them. This program is going to start with Dr. D and Dr. Katie, who are going to give you some of their own personal experiences and why they decided to go into lifestyle medicine. We will also feature Dr. Neil Barnard and also Dr. Michael Gregard, and it's going to end with one of Dr. David Drozek's students, who's going to teach us a little bit about the glycemic index. I hope that you will find this information very helpful, and please let us know. We'd love to have you contact us. There's a number of different ways that you can contact Sojourners Along the Way through our email address, which is sojourners3.tv@gmail.com. And Sojourners is spelled Sojourners, Sojourners3.tv@gmail.com. Our physical address is 507 Richland Avenue, Suite 100, and that is in Athens, Ohio, Athens, and zip code is 45701. Love to hear from you, programs that you would like to have on Sojourners Along the Way, and also how has information helped you. What information would you like to have? So please contact us. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Drozek.
And I'm Dr. Katie Kropf.
Today we're here to talk about lifestyle medicine. Something that wasn't even on my radar screen probably about 5 years ago. It wasn't until I had a visit to my own primary care doc and found out that I had prediabetes and high blood pressure and high cholesterol and some other things. I tried the standard things, including some medicine, which caused some side effects that didn't really help take care of the problem much for me. And then in May of 2011, Live Healthy Appalachia sponsored their first health summit, and my wife went. It wasn't of interest to me, and she came back and said, "You need to go. You can be cured of your diabetes." I was a little reluctant, a little bit skeptical, but I went and I listened. And Dr. Esselstyn from Cleveland Clinic and Dr. Campbell from Cornell were here, and they talked about how people were getting cured of their heart disease, their diabetes, their blood pressure, lots of other illnesses were improving just by applying the principles of lifestyle medicine. I was skeptical at first and began reading more, and then became convinced that this was the way to go, applied it to my own life, and got better, got off all my medicines, and now I'm well.
Yeah, that's great. And as I said earlier, I'm Katie Kropf. I'm a family medicine physician, and I fortunately have not had to deal with many chronic illnesses yet, although I do have psoriasis, and from eating a plant-based diet that has improved tremendously. For me, kind of a holistic approach to caring for people has always been a big part of my philosophy of primary care and family medicine, and I entered med school with that ideals. And in med school I had to hunker down and really focus on learning about the diseases and how we treat them with medications in order to pass through med school. But I always kind of knew that there was other approaches I wanted to be using. And so it also fits really with the osteopathic principles. We're both osteopathic physicians. And one of the founding philosophies of osteopathy is that the body has the ability to heal itself. And so that fits in really well with lifestyle medicine because we're giving the body the tools to heal and get better. So over the last couple years, I've just been getting more and more in touch with those original roots I had when I went into med school of wanting to figure out other ways to help people get better. And one of the messages I start with people is that, did you know you could get better? That thing that you realized from going to those talks in the summit, that a lot of times doctors don't even tell patients, do you know you don't have to be on these blood pressure medicines or diabetes medicines or cholesterol medicines? There are some people who may still need to be on some of them, but many of those factors and variables are within our control. And so starting off by telling people that message, because I don't think they're hearing that in what they're hearing from friends or family or from other doctors that they see. It's always like, oh, you have this diagnosis, here's this medication for it. And so that's one of the first places I start, is by telling people that, you know, we can do something different about it, but it's going to require some input on your part. I'm willing to do what I can, but you have to be motivated and excited to do it on your side of the equation. And that's a process for many, many people. There's something called the stages of change, where people are in a place where they're pre-contemplation, they're not even thinking about it yet, and then comes contemplation, and like, oh, there's this idea that I could do something different about my health. Let me think about that, but they're not really ready for it. And then they move through the next stages of deciding to make a change, making a plan, and then doing the change. And one of my jobs as a primary care physician is to kind of assess people where they're at, give them the information at whatever stage they're at in that process, and help them hopefully move forward. And that process can go from, you know, a month long to 10 years long. That's one of the challenges of working with people, is that we often have patterns and behaviors that we've done our whole lives. And so sometimes by the time someone's 60, it may be very difficult for them to make that change. On the other hand, people have aha moments. They have their first grandchild born and they say, I want to be around for this kid to go to college. And so they get really motivated to make change quickly. And that can be exciting to see. It's harder to kind of watch people year after year make bad choices when you know that they could have a very different life if they were to do it. But you have to meet people where they're at and give them the information to start making change.
When I first found the power of principles of lifestyle medicine in my own life, I wanted to learn more about it. Became involved in the Complete Health Improvement Program, or CHIP, which was offered here at town. My wife and I went and got training to be facilitators, and it was actually running our first couple classes that I really got a grasp of what lifestyle medicine is. There's three main principles that we deal with. One is nutrition or diet, and not diet in a temporary sense, but in a lifestyle change. And exercise, similarly, getting up, moving in a normal, active way. But sometimes additional exercise is good as well, but if we can get people to be active in their lifestyle, that's ideal. And then stress, dealing with stress and relaxation techniques are involved in the program as well. And then there's also dealing with unhealthy habits, tobacco, alcohol, things like that, that are also addressed in the program. I was a little timid at first when we began teaching CHIP, facilitating really, because the videos have all the material, but as I learned for myself and I saw other people get better, I became bolder and bolder in my willingness to speak out and really promote this, and now I'm totally sold, and this is a specialty. Seeing the effects of CHIP on the patients' lives kind of gave me boldness to be more outspoken about lifestyle medicine and to actually embrace it as my own practice, and to begin to share that with patients in the office rather than just in group settings. I practice predominantly, or I did at that point, in Nelsonville, and we did have a CHIP class sponsored by Rocky Boots in Nelsonville. The CHIP class, unless your employer is paying for it, it's expensive, $600, and for a lot of people that's a lot of money to put up front in something that they may not be convinced is going to make a difference, or that they even need it. So from that, I wanted to develop a way to give this information to more people that wouldn't be able to or couldn't afford it. We tried some scholarships, and we found out that people who went to CHIP with a scholarship did just as well as people who paid out of pocket or had their employer paid. And that led to then developing a program that was sponsored by Doctors Hospital in Nelsonville. And we began offering a free program there using free online materials that were available, predominantly information from Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, put out by Dr. Neil Barnard in Washington, D.C. And we had success. People were getting better just as they were in the CHIP class, even though this was a program offered free, sponsored by the hospital, including a nice free meal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I did not teach the CHIP class, but I actually attended the CHIP class myself, the Complete Health Improvement program, and I was amazed as well. I'd been vegetarian for the past, since I had my teenage years, so like almost 20 years of being a vegetarian, and so this was pushing me further to being completely plant-based, whole food plant-based, and I really enjoyed how much I learned, even though I was a physician. I still felt like I learned a lot, and the testimonies that they show in the class and as well as from my fellow classmates also further convinced me about how much change people could have in surprising ways. Not just that their numbers got better, but just the ways they felt better. And that is one of the important things to point out when we're talking about lifestyle medicine. It's not just about sacrificing some of your favorite foods so your cholesterol numbers get better. It's actually so you feel better, you have more energy, you feel invigorated, you feel like you want to do more things, you lose weight so you have less arthritis pain. And I think that's one of the things that is really good to point out to people, that they can actually have a more fun life, a more rich life because of the different things they get to do with it, that it's no longer going to just be about feeling sick, going to the doctor a lot, putting a lot of money into medications and doctor visits. So there's a lot of really positive benefits that I started seeing from the people that I went to class with. And that inspired me to have more of that in my own clinic and talk about it in that way, but I also wanted to have that chance to work with people on a community basis, because there is something different that people experience when they're working together and get to talk with other people about what's going on and the changes and what's working for them and what's been hard. So there's that kind of support group aspect of it. When people try and make changes like this, they are fairly actively sabotaged by our society. Any street you drive down, there's billboards. Anytime you turn TV, there's ads for eat this Big Mac, eat this big, supersized thing. When you go to a community event or a family dinner, all this food that's there for people to eat, and you're kind of perceived as an outsider for making these choices for your own health. And so I think being in the class setting definitely helps people feel a little bit more empowered and that they're not alone in this process. And I've seen some people do well individually. It certainly is the way that some people don't want to have a part of a class. They are introverts or just don't like being in the group setting, but many people really love being with a group and learning from that process and being inspired by it.
The specifics of the diet, we keep talking about it,
Yeah.
and that the plant-based whole food diet, we know that a diet strong or high in animal products has been a detriment to our health as a society. So we promote a diet that's high in in plant products, whole grains, fresh fruits and vegetables, legumes. One way that we promote that, one of the resources I use is the Full Plate Diet, and they promote getting your fiber up to 35 to 40 grams. If you're eating 40 grams of fiber naturally, not artificially, you're going to be pretty full of a plant-based diet. We know that the processed foods strip out the fiber and lots of the other healthy things in our diet, so we're looking for whole foods, things that resemble what they look like in their natural state. Things can be processed, but minimally processed. Applesauce is fine, but turning applesauce into some kind of these dessert cakes isn't quite so good. So we promote predominantly a plant-based whole food diet. Myself, I eat totally a plant-based whole food diet. So so no animal products at all. That's scary to a lot of people. But I needed to do that to get better. I tried a Mediterranean diet for a while, which is pretty high in fruits and vegetables and low in animal products, but I didn't get better until I eliminated dairy and the meat that I was eating totally from my diet, and it made the difference for me. But that's a turnoff. A lot of people jump to the vegan word, and that's scary, but once you embrace this, you feel so good, you get better, and you find out how wonderful whole foods can be. We're not talking about raw food. You know, we're not just eating raw carrots and raw stuff. It's well prepared and very tasty, and there's endless recipes. So that's part of what we teach in the class, is how to fix the food so people aren't put off by this thought that they just have to go eat directly from the produce counter.
Yeah, no, it's a big exploration for a lot of people to like try out new things and new recipes, and a lot of people are very surprised at how much they can really like a lot of the recipes that we advocate for.
And exercise, specifics on exercise, we like people to work toward either 10,000 steps a day on a pedometer or 150 minutes a week, which is about 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, of moderate to vigorous exercise. And moderate exercise, a nice rule of thumb is you could talk, but you couldn't carry a tune while you're doing moderate exercise. Vigorous exercise, you can't even carry on a conversation because you're huffing and puffing too much. So that's what we encourage people to set as a minimum, either 10,000 steps on a pedometer or 150 minutes a week. And that can be broken up even into segments as small as 10 minutes at a time. The science shows that that's just as effective as doing 30 minutes at a time.
Yeah, and even adding things in about moving naturally, finding ways to do something that's not quite exercise, whether it be walking to the grocery store, parking your car farther away from the grocery store door, dancing in your kitchen is one of the things I encourage people to do, because so many people are like, I don't have the ability to go to a gym, or they live out in country roads, they don't feel safe walking on the country roads. I'm like, okay, well, let's figure out what can you do that will be fun and playful for you, that will be sustainable, because we're not talking about doing this just for a short period of time, we're talking about doing this for your life. So what are some ways you can build movement into your life naturally, whether it be gardening, as I said, dancing, whatever ways that you want to do it that feels fun.
And the other area is stress reduction. Now I am just learning that, but Katie's been doing that for a lot longer than I have. She's kind of our stress reduction expert.
Yeah, although I'm still learning a lot too. I started with meditation practice when I was in med school because I was stressed out, and carried that through medical school, and have done it off and on through my life. Although I've also done yoga, and I find exercise very reducing my stress, and spending time outside. For me, being outside in the trees and the nature is profound. But that's not what works for everybody. So it's finding out what works for you to kind of power down a little bit from that, like getting stuff done, stress at job, stress with family, and sitting for a while, or moving outside, or in some way that allows you to kind of calm yourself down. And that can be in a 3-minute guided meditation. It could be in 30 minutes of sitting quietly. There's lots of ways to do it. I think a lot of people get kind of freaked out by the idea of sitting still and reaching some kind of state that they think they're supposed to reach in meditation. And that's not what it's about at all. It's just sitting quietly, noticing your breath coming in and out of your body, this thing that happens all day long that we kind of forget about, that we're sitting here breathing, and connect with that. So kind of bringing your body, mind, and spirit together and noticing your breath coming in and out of your body. And then also just noticing your thoughts. It doesn't mean clearing your mind of all thoughts. It's beginning to notice what's going through your brain while you're sitting there, and knowing that you can just watch your thoughts go by. We're not our thoughts. We kind of get caught up in thinking that we are our thoughts. But we aren't. We're more than that. We're many, many things, and sometimes we have patterns of thinking, whether they be negative self-messages or various ways we've been hurt that kind of keep coming up. And if we can start seeing them as thoughts, and one of the analogies I say is like sitting in front of a river and watching leaves float on the river float by. You don't have to follow the leaves all the way down. You just kind of watch them float by, and just keep returning back to your breath. And that can be very powerful for people, whether they're in an acute kind of panic or anxiety state, or just as you go through your daily habits of the day, and sitting for a short period of time. And as I said, it can be for 3 minutes or it could be 30 minutes. There's no right or wrong way to do it, but it is really helpful for people to take some time out of their day to bring that connection together of body, mind, and spirit.
Yeah, we do that in our class. We set aside some time, and oftentimes we'll have the participants check their pulse, or at times if the class is small enough, their blood pressure before and after just 8 or 10 minutes of relaxation. And we can power down that blood pressure and that pulse rate.
Mm-hmm.
Studies have shown that just 12 minutes of meditation or relaxation a day does some other positive biochemical changes in our bodies as well, leading toward health and wellness. So it's an important, powerful tool that oftentimes gets overlooked. We're just busy, too busy to do that.
We're too busy. And it's slow. It's not like you're going to sit for 3 minutes and feel miraculously better. Although sometimes I do, actually. I'm like, oh, okay, I can kind of go through the day a little bit more recharged. But it is a practice. It is something. And that's true with all of these aspects. There are things you may see quite fast by making these changes, but a lot of it is about kind of unraveling the years of damage we've put into our bodies by not eating well, not moving, and not taking time for our spirits. I was going to go back to talking a little bit about the what we eat, and there's so much confusion out there about what is a healthy diet, and there's something new in the media almost on a daily basis, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges for people. I think a lot more people are starting to say, oh, I want to eat more healthfully. I think this past year actually the average caloric consumption per person actually went down for the first time in a long time, and people are starting to take notice of either the calories that are listed on fast food restaurant boards, those are there now a lot of the times, or just awareness that we are getting more and more obese and that we need to be doing something. But they get very confused. So many packages say, this is healthy for you. Oh, look at all the fiber in your, fruity colored cereal. So it gets very confusing, but what I like about this approach is pretty much everybody agrees that fruits and vegetables and whole grains are good for you. So you can get into this or that, but as long as you kind of go back to eating fruits and vegetables and whole grains, almost every diet that is out there is promoting those things. And they just gave a big lecture to the med students about the various diets that are out there and all the confusion behind them and all the data.
It's confusing, because oftentimes the studies are comparing apples and oranges in a sense. They're not. They're not comparing the same things. A lot of people come to us seeking help for weight reduction. That seems to be on everybody's mind, and partly because of magazines and the glamorous people in Hollywood, and we all have this body image where we want to be thin. Lifestyle medicine does produce weight reduction, usually slower than most people would like because they want these rapid weight loss diets. But it's a healthy, slower weight loss that you can keep off. Some of the interesting facts that I use with people when they start to talk about what they are eating is, for example, 100 calories a day. If you eat that in excess of what you would normally be eating and you're not compensating by burning that off, at the end of the year you'll put on 10 pounds. The reverse is the same. So if you say, for example, a 12-ounce can of Coke, 140 calories. So if you eliminate that can of Coke and don't replace it with some other form of calories, at the end of the year you'll lose 14 pounds. So there's some very simple things that we can do to cut down the calories and help fight the obesity problem. Now, obesity is more of a concern for me, not because of how people look, but because of the things that travel with it. Parallel to the obesity epidemic is the diabetes epidemic and heart disease and many types of cancers. So obesity is a marker of what's going on in the body. So it's important, but many people focus on that, and that's okay. If that's what gets them healthy, focusing on their weight, great. So the program we developed is called the Lifestyle Medicine Clinic. We've gone through some name changes, but that's the current name that'll probably stick for a while. It started out as a group program that we mentioned. Started out as 12 weeks, 12 sessions. Had a fair bit of success. We're on our 5th cycle. Had some people come up and ask, can't they meet with me one-on-one because they couldn't make it to the group or they didn't want to come to a group. So I started seeing patients one-on-one. I don't think they tend to do quite as well one-on-one as they do because I think they have that camaraderie and that built-in positive peer pressure that's there when they do it in a group. But I've been encouraging people in my clinic to bring a support person with them. So they're beginning to build that into them.
Yeah, and that's part of what's great about having this in our community and as well as having the CHIP class, because I'm always talking about this stuff with my patients that I see for many, many different reasons, and I can give them some basic information and kind of start getting them on the road to making these changes. But to make these kinds of changes takes a lot of information. It really does, because you do need to learn what to buy and how to prepare it and how to deal with situations when you're on the road or traveling, which is some of the stuff we cover. And so it's been great to see some patients that I've talked to about making these changes say, well, how do I do it? And now I have a resource for them. It's been one of the challenges I think a lot of doctors have, is that they know that there's ways they want their patients to be eating differently, moving differently, but it's hard in the short amount of time you have in your doctor-patient relationship to really give that information. You can kind of give the basics or say, here's a resource. But I have so much more confidence that my patients will be successful knowing that they are participating in a class. And, you know, the CHIP class is, how many series, how many sessions, like 18?
18,
And
but in a
ours is
compressed
in
period
12.
of time usually.
Yeah, usually in a kind of a short amount of time. But there's a lot of information. It's a huge educational experience for people. And I think that really is what kind of, you know, turns on the light bulb for some people, because they didn't realize how much evidence there was or all the different health benefits there were, and then doing it in that group setting.
Yeah, I tell people it's a class. It's not me giving you pills. It's a class. I become the teacher and the coach. They become the person who actually applies what they're learning. So the group program that we offer is free. The individual class I have, or the individual program I have, is compressed. I spend about 30 minutes with a patient in my office, and then I give them about 2 hours worth of homework. So the things we do in the class, they need to do at home, online, reading it, and watching the videos that are there. Getting ready to start a small group clinic-based program. It will be an hour with 8 to 10 to 12 people who will sit, and we'll go through the core part of the videos, and then the rest will be, they'll have another hour or so's worth of homework to do at home to try to get the best of both worlds, to get them together in the group. But if they have trouble with finding 2 hours in the evening, hopefully we can find an hour that they can come on a few-week basis. The other thing I'm going to try to do is to break it up. I'm going to do 6 weeks, ask people to make an initial 6-week commitment to come, because I think the 12 weeks scares people off too. We have about a 50% dropout rate the first couple of weeks, and I'm not surprised because a lot of people come in with false expectations. They want that magic bullet. They want to come in and hear this magic thing they can do that first couple of weeks, and when we tell them, the information's simple, but it's difficult to apply. A lot of people say, this is too hard. They get disillusioned and they don't come back. But the 50% that stick it out and get through, I mean, the results are really exciting. Okay, so right now what's available, we don't have a community class that people can begin with right now, because we're about halfway through, a little more than halfway through. But I plan to have another community class in the fall, probably starting sometime end of September and going for 6 weeks to get the basics down, and then maybe in the spring or late winter, February, March, we'll offer the next 6 segments, which would be beyond the basics. Also available right now would be individual sessions with me. Dr. Kropf, I think, is seeing some patients. Are you taking patients specifically for lifestyle medicine?
I have not so far, just because I don't have the space in my schedule to do it right now.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things I'm trying to juggle around and figure out what the next couple years look like for me to put more of my focus on this aspect of practicing medicine. But I don't have a specific plan yet.
But you're definitely doing it with your ongoing patients.
Yes.
And then I'll be starting this small group here. Hopefully, I've tentatively targeted the first week of May to begin, and that'll be 6 weeks. And the way people can find out, we'll post all the times and dates online, It's www.thelifestylemedicineclinic.us. No spaces. So www.thelifestylemedicineclinic.us. There's contact there. They can email me with any questions.
Yeah, and you also have a ton of resources on there. All the different
Yes.
modules that we cover in the class are there. So things about cardiovascular health and bone health and cancer and the exercise components, the basics of how to get a high fiber diet. All of those things are there. So it's a great resource for people if they want to check that out.
Yeah, people are welcome to do it themselves. You know, there's nothing magic about it, although the accountability is helpful. So they're welcome to take the materials. You can download all the things that we offer people in the class. It's all there for free. We're there to help whenever we can.
Hi there, it's Julia Talbot here, certified holistic nutritionist and lifestyle coach at Blossom Healthy. And I'm just so super excited to have a very special guest on our show today, Dr. Neil Barnard. Dr. Neil Barnard is a medical doctor, president of the Physicians Committee for Medicine, and the founder of the Barnard Medical Center. Dr. Barnard has authored more than 70 scientific publications as well as 18 books, including the New York Times bestseller, Power Foods for the Brain, 21-Day Weight Loss Kickstart, and the USA Today bestseller, Dr. Barnard's Program for Reversing Diabetes. Dr. Barnard, welcome, and I'm really thrilled to see you here.
Great. Well, it's great to be with you today.
Now, I have a question, and can you share with us what led you to discover low-fat vegan lifestyle, and why did you decide to incorporate it into your doctor's practice, considering it's not really something most doctors would ever do?
Well, it really should be, because food is not only a very powerful treatment, but it's really the fundamental cause of so many of the problems that our patients are dealing with. Now, a century ago, when the problem might be infections, so if bacteria were getting into the body and causing pneumonia, for example, it made sense to ignore what people were eating and concentrate on trying to find an antibiotic that might hurt them. Well, today it might help them, but today everything is really quite different. The conditions that most people are dealing with, weight problems or diabetes or hypertension or heart disease, those aren't caused by bacteria, they're caused by the foods that we're putting on our plates. So that's really where our attention has to go. So it's true that not every doctor is really there yet, but they really should be, because that's how we're going to help patients.
I totally, absolutely agree with you. Now, I wanted to ask you about being overweight, and I know it's a big problem in our world, and in fact, according to the World Health Organization, back in 2014, there were more than 1.9 billion overweight people on our planet. And usually when people are overweight, they tend to blame their genes. They just say it's just the way of life. It's because it's in my genes. What are your thoughts on this?
It's sort of logical, because a person would say, well, my parents were overweight, my brothers and sisters are overweight, and so I'm just going to be overweight. It must be genetic. But you know, we don't just hand our children DNA. We also hand them recipes and tastes for different kinds of foods and that sort of thing. So sometimes what runs through a family is not a genetic trait, but rather cultural preferences for certain foods. For me, I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota, and so every day of my life it was roast beef, baked potatoes, and corn, except for special occasions when it was roast beef, baked potatoes, and peas. And that was pretty much the way we ate. And there's an important thing to really understand about genes. There are some genes that are very decisive. For example, there are genes that will affect the color of your eyes. And I think of them as dictator genes. If the genes say you're going to have blue eyes, then you're going to have blue eyes. These genes are dictators and they give orders, and that's it. But the genes for weight are not really dictators. They're more like committees. They say, well, you could be overweight depending on what you eat. Or you're going to be thin depending on what you eat. But what they're really making is sort of suggestions rather than giving orders. So the good news is, let's say everybody in your family was having a weight challenge, but you decide to make a big change in your diet. You throw out the meat, throw out the cheese, throw out the grease. Are you going to be slimmer than them? Absolutely you are. Our studies and those of many other groups show that whatever genetic hand you have been dealt, we can change this. So genes are not destiny.
That's great. It's so empowering. It's also empowering for people to know that they can make changes to their lifestyle and to their weight. Now, there are a lot of different approaches to diets, and people are often confused. For example, paleo and ketogenic diet will tell you to not eat carbohydrates if you want to lose weight, but instead focus on high protein and high fat approach in your diet. So what are some of the implications of this diet on people's health and weight?
Yeah, the paleo trend has been and understandably popular because it conjures up nice images. We can imagine ourselves being successful hunters, and it's sort of a romantic period of time when we were out wearing loincloths and taking a spear and felling an antelope and being rather macho. And so the paleo idea was that the Paleolithic period is, in the mind's eye of these book writers, it's after the Stone Age. So we've got stone tools and we've got hatchets and we've got spears, but it's before we figured out how to plant anything. So they say, well, let's make a diet that's got meat in it because now we've got spears, but we're not going to eat anything that requires putting a seed in the ground because we're not that smart. So no grains and no beans because those require planting, but we'll have meat. And it's true that a person in theory could lose weight that way because so many of the foods that we eat now require agriculture. And if you're not going to eat anything that's planted, you'll certainly lose weight. But it's really a fantasy because if you look back further, as before the paleo period, you understand that people are not carnivorous at all. We pick fruit or leaves and we stick them in our mouths, and we don't have long canine teeth. The canine teeth in the human mouth are no longer than your incisors. So the Stone Age gave us arrowheads because we're not very fast and we can't capture prey, but an arrow can fly fast through the air and make us pretend we're a carnivore. Or they give us hatchets and stone tools to allow us to dismember prey when we don't have the teeth or claws for it. So no, we are not carnivores. We never have been carnivores. And the Stone Age was simply a time that allowed us to pretend to be carnivores. But we still have the coronary arteries and digestive tract of herbivores, and that's the natural diet for us. So it's no surprise that when people go to an herbivorous diet, which you might call a vegan diet, they lose weight and they get back toward the kind of health that nature had in mind for them.
So can you explain a little bit more how it happens? So why is it that when people switch to a low-fat, plant-based vegan lifestyle, they start to lose weight? But not only that, they start to balance type 2 diabetes and other diseases and hormonal challenges amongst menopausal females.
In other words, why is it that when a person goes on a vegan diet, why do they lose weight so effectively? Why do they get healthy?
Right.
It's an interesting thing because when we do research studies here, which we're doing currently and we do all the time, we introduce people to vegan diets and they can't imagine that this could cause them to lose weight because we're letting them eat as much food as they want to, and we're not telling them not to eat carbohydrates. We're telling them to go ahead and jump in and have the carbohydrate-rich foods if they want to. And especially if they have diabetes, they're afraid of fruit because fruit's sweet. That's going to hurt me, isn't it? But they jump in, they eat these things, and they do really, really well. They lose weight. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One is they're not eating very much fat. They're not eating any cheese fat or chicken fat or beef fat. And fat has 9 calories in every gram. And if you're not eating that, you're going to lose weight. Carbohydrate, whether it's from a fruit or a grain or a bean or anything, or even from pure sugar, it has only 4 calories per gram. So when people switch away from the fatty foods, they tend to lose weight. Also, if everything you're eating is from a plant, plants have fiber. Fiber is filling, but it really doesn't have much in the way of calories. So you feel full and you stop eating before you've overdone it. So these are reasons why people tend to lose weight. We also think that it improves body metabolism, but that's another issue that we're investigating now.
Very, very interesting. Now, do you think people can still include plant-based fat into their diet? So let's say it's avocados or nuts or seeds if they're looking to lose weight.
Well, those are natural fats. Where I think we run into trouble is when we are extracting fats. For example, if I take 10,000 olives and I extract the oil and I throw away all of the pulp and all the fiber and I put it in a bottle and I call it virgin, then that virgin olive oil sounds attractive, but it's really not natural for us. But on the other hand, if I take an olive and I pop it in my mouth, I'm getting the traces of olive oil. There's a difference between those two. Your body needs traces of oil, but it doesn't need oil slathered all over the foods that you're eating. So those are the ones I'm concerned about. But if a person eats nuts, or if you eat seeds, or if you eat some avocado slices, you're getting oil in a natural form. If a person is really struggling with their weight and they followed a meaty diet and they're trying to lose weight, or if they're trying to reverse diabetes, they may need to be careful about all sources of oil, including the nuts and the avocado, while they're losing weight, because there are very few plant foods that are really rich in oil, and that's really kind of the list: the nuts and the seeds and the avocados, and they are rather calorie dense. But on the other hand, for most people, they can incorporate these foods with no problem at all. I might mention one other thing. There are natural oils even in vegetables. If you have a leaf of spinach or something like that, and you send it to a laboratory, they'll tell you it's maybe 7 or 8% fat as a percentage of calories. And a high proportion of that fat is omega-3. So there's not a lot of fat in them, but the fat that there is healthy for you.
Yes, yeah, I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people to understand the healthy types of vegan fats and unhealthy types of vegan fats. Now, moving on, a lot of people suffer from food addiction. So specifically people who want to lose weight, it's a psychological issue for a lot of them, and they go back to old foods because they're addicted to them. So what would you recommend them doing?
Well, the first thing is if a person feels that they're food addicted, it's good for them to know that it's not them. It's the food that's doing it. In other words, it's not a bad childhood. It's not a history of trauma or something like that for most people. They have certain properties that affect the brain and make us come back to them over and over again. Sugar is the obvious example. If I'm having a soda, the sugar will go to the brain and trigger the release of opiates that are sort of feel-good chemicals. They also have a little caffeine to boost it even further, and that just happens to be addictive. We've seen this with cheese, which is funny because it smells like old socks, and yet people get hooked on it. We've found that there are mild opiates in cheese too. They're called casomorphins, and they attach to the brain at the very same binding sites that heroin would attach to. They're not as strong, but they're strong enough to make people want that. Chocolate has a variety of brain effects as well. And so when a person is just stuffing themselves with food, I guarantee you there is nobody who was ever addicted to strawberries or grapes or papayas or mangoes. I mean, we may love these foods. This morning I had a papaya and I had a mango and I loved it. But you know what? I didn't eat 7 of them. You have one and you think that's just delicious. Maybe I'll have one again tomorrow, because these foods are nourishing. They're delicious. They have the nutrition you need, but they're not going to play haywire with your brain.
It's so true. And for those who really just still believe that it's impossible to break food addictions, I've been eating low fat, mostly raw vegan myself for 8 years, and it's just so liberating to be free of food addictions. It changes your life in so many positive ways. Dr. Barnard, last but not least, can you tell us where can people connect to you and find out more about your life-changing books?
Oh, well, thank you. We're here in Washington, D.C. at the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And so our website is pcrm.org. And if you're ever in the Washington, D.C. area, if you're here, I hope you'll drop by and visit.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to have you on our show. And it's so incredible, the positive impact that you bring into this world, the light that you shine. Thank you so much. It's a real honor to have you here.
Well, thank you. It's very much a team effort, and I'm grateful to you for spreading the good word.
Thank you.
One way a diet rich in animal-sourced foods, meat, eggs, and cheese, may contribute to heart disease, stroke, and death is through the production of an atherosclerosis-inducing substance called TMAO. And with the help of certain gut bacteria, the choline and carnitine found concentrated in animal products can get converted into TMAO. But wait a second, I thought atherosclerosis, hardening of the arteries, was about the buildup of cholesterol. Cholesterol is still king. TMAO just appears to accelerate the process. TMAO appears to increase the ability of inflammatory cells within the atherosclerotic plaque in the artery wall to bind to LDL cholesterol, which makes them more prone to gobble up that cholesterol. So it's just another piece of the puzzle of how cholesterol causes heart disease. And TMAO doesn't just appear to worsen atherosclerosis, contributing to strokes and heart attacks, but also heart failure and kidney failure. If you look at a really high-risk group, like diabetics after a heart attack, nearly all those who started out with the most TMAO in their bloodstream went on to develop heart failure within 2,000 days, about 5 years, whereas only about 20% of those starting out with medium levels in the blood went into heart failure, and none in the low TMAO group. Not only do those with heart failure have higher levels of TMAO than controls, and those with worse heart failure have higher levels than those with lesser stage disease. If you follow people with heart failure over time, within 6 years, half of those who started out with the highest levels were dead. This finding has since been replicated in 2 other independent populations of heart failure patients. The question is why? It's probably unlikely to just be additional atherosclerosis, since that takes years. For most of those that die of heart failure, the heart muscle just conks out, or there's a fatal heart rhythm, so maybe TMAO has toxic effects beyond just the accelerated buildup of cholesterol. What about kidney failure? People with chronic kidney disease are at particularly increased risk for the development of cardiovascular disease, thought to be because of a diverse array of uremic toxins. These are toxins that would normally be filtered out by the kidneys into the urine, but may build up in the bloodstream as our kidney function declines. When we think of uremic toxins, we usually think of the toxic byproducts of protein putrefying in our gut, which is why specially formulated plant-based diets have been used for decades to treat chronic kidney failure. Those who eat vegetarian form less than half of these uremic toxins in the first place. But those aren't the only uremic toxins. TMAO, from the breakdown of choline and carnitine in mostly meat and eggs, may be increasing heart disease risk in kidney patients as well, by apparently downregulating reverse cholesterol transport, meaning subverting our own body's attempt at pulling cholesterol out of our arteries. And indeed, the worse our kidney function gets, the higher our TMAO levels rise, and those elevated levels correlate with the amount of plaque they have clogging up the arteries in their heart. But get a kidney transplant, get a working kidney going, and you can drop your TMAO levels right back down. So TMAO was thought to be kind of a biomarker for declining kidney function. But then this study was published from the Framingham Heart Study, which found that elevated choline and TMAO levels among individuals with normal kidney function predicted increased risk for developing chronic kidney disease, suggesting TMAO is both a biomarker and itself a kidney toxin. Indeed, when you follow kidney patients over time and assess their freedom from death, those with higher TMAO, even controlling for kidney function, live significantly shorter lives, indicating this diet-induced mechanism for progressive kidney scarring and dysfunction, strongly implying the need to focus preventative efforts on dietary modification. What might that look like? Well, Maybe we should reduce dietary sources of TMAO generation, such as some species of deep-sea fish, eggs, and meat. But it also depends on what kind of gut bacteria you have. Remember, you can feed a vegan a steak, and they still don't really make any TMAO because they haven't been fostering the carnitine-eating bacteria in their gut. Researchers are hoping, however, that one day they'll find a way to replicate the effects of a vegetarian diet by selective prebiotic, probiotic, or antibiotic therapies.
The glycemic index measures how a carbohydrate-containing food raises blood glucose. So basically how much that glucose is absorbed into your bloodstream in a certain amount of time. And foods are ranked based on how they compare to a reference food, such as glucose or white bread. So here's just the numbers that we use to reference the certain levels that are on the GI chart, which for low GI foods is less than 55. Medium GI is between 55 and 69, and high GI is above 70. So here's a chart to show you the difference between high GI foods and low GI foods and kind of how they peak your glucose levels in your bloodstream. So you can see on the blood glucose levels, very high GI foods such as glucose would be up there, so just straight up sugar would be very high up here too. So they really cause your blood sugars to spike. And as you can see, it also comes with a dramatic drop. So that's where you experience that crash after eating a lot of sugar or a high glucose food. And then you can see this is kind of where we want to be, is those low GI foods. They kind of keep your blood sugars stable and without that dramatic drop in blood glucose. So low GI foods, some of these would be like oatmeal or pasta, and Dr. Barnard really highlighted barley, bulgur, sweet potato, corn, yam, lime and butter beans, peas, legumes, and lentils, which we said lentils are kind of like a bean. Most fruits and non-starchy vegetables. So starchy vegetables are the ones that really have that. The starch is what really boosts your blood sugars. So non-starchy vegetables would be like broccoli and leafy greens, and then starchy are more the corn, but as you can see, it's still a low GI food. So you're good with the vegetables, you're good with most fruits. So medium GI, whole wheat, rye, and pita bread, which Dr. Barnard said whole wheat is high, but I think it's okay because of the fiber content. So as compared to white bread, which has like nothing, you're gonna be okay.
Can I interrupt a second?
Sure.
You're doing great.
Yeah.
But the buns that we have here tonight are probably the ones Dr. Barnard said. They come and they say whole wheat, but when you look at really what the concentration of that is, like if you got a whole wheat bread that was really made with lots of whole grains, it's lower. But the store-bought whole wheat probably isn't so much that. And I think that's kind of what he was getting at. It's colored more.
That's a great point, because a lot of food industries also put those whole wheat breads on the market, when really it's, do you guys remember the little grain of wheat in the different parts of the wheat, like the endosperm and the bran and the germ? So we want to avoid breads that are mostly made of that endosperm, which is that high starch center of the grain. And then the food industry sometimes will just take most of the endosperm, make the bread, but maybe incorporate some of, the grainy, fibery part, and then they'll just put a label of this is healthy, this is whole wheat, but it's
if
really
it says 100% whole
is the first ingredient in the label. And then brown, wild, or basmati rice and couscous. And then high GI foods are your white bread or sometimes wheat bread, bagels, those like very dense carbohydrate foods, corn flakes, puffed rice, bran flakes, instant oatmeal, short grain white rice, rice pasta, russet potato, pumpkin, pretzels, rice cakes, and then melons and pineapple. You guys can read it probably. Pumpkin probably has a lot high sugar content, even if it's natural, sometimes like the pineapple and melon. But pumpkin does have fiber, so you have to remember, like, you can eat these foods, but I love how he put it, you know, pair it with some beans, pair it with some high fiber foods to bring down those sugar levels when they're absorbed, so kind of just to quiz you guys. So, sweet potatoes or russet white potatoes? What do you think?
Sweet.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, better. Okay, yeah. That's a better, I should have clarified the question. Yes, definitely. And why do you guys think that is? It is, definitely.
And then it's not as bad.
Yeah.
But if it's baked,
Sure,
it's
sure.
fine.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, and one thing to remember is the fiber content. So there's a lot of fiber in that sweet potato that makes it. So why do you guys think fiber is so great for sugar absorption?
Takes longer.
Takes longer, right? It slows the sugar
Cancels out the
absorption.
brown sugar.
Use cinnamon.
Use cinnamon. So fruit juice versus whole fruit. Whole fruit is better. Why?
Fiber.
Fiber.
Because you're getting all that concentrated stuff.
Right, and juice is just the sugar. It's tastes good. It tastes like the fruit sometimes, but it's just sugar, and it's a high concentration of sugar. So, apples, bananas. Both low, right? And I was just amazed when I first learned bananas because I always thought bananas are so high in sugar, but they're still on the low end of the GI. So whole wheat, yeah, it's going to be better ultimately. They're both higher, so one of those moderation foods, but definitely the fiber in whole wheat is going to help you out with that. And can you guys tell me kind of a GI superstar that Dr. Barnard mentioned that he was really excited about? Barley was good. He actually was talking a lot about beans and how great those are, the high fiber. So I mentioned earlier, but I really want you guys to remember beans are great for that. So, and oatmeal. Sorry?
As long as it's not instant.
Yeah, isn't that funny? I don't really know why that is, but do you have any ideas?
Probably already processed.
Probably.
What about steel cut?
You guys ever seen an oat grain, like how they look? They're like thin and skinny. So they flatten those and steam it, and that's your usual like old-fashioned oatmeal. But then for steel cut, they literally just cut those into pieces. So maybe you guys knew that already, but I don't think it would be too much different because it's still that whole grain. So just a last little tidbit, sugar. So unprocessed forms do have additional nutritional value. So honey is kind of in the medium range, a little above low, but there's healing properties, and dates are lower glycemic, which is surprising because they are higher in sugar, but that fiber feeds healthy colon bacteria. So just, want to yield on the unprocessed side if you're adding it to your oatmeal or whatever it is, tea. That's all I have.